The Celts, a project by 4th class in the Presentation Primary School, Kilkenny.
The Celts were from a large area in Europe that covered the south of Germany, Austria and France. They came from many different tribes. However, they all spoke the same language. Each tribe had its own leader. The Celts discovered a new metal called iron. The Celtic metalworks found that iron was stronger than bronze. They created new iron weapons that made it easier to beat their enemies in battle. Celtic farmers were able to use their new iron tools to clear the trees from around their homes. The Celts loved nature around them. They set up ring forts which were around all the houses. A ring fort was a circular shape made out of a wooden fence. Around the fence was a bog or a river to protect people in case of a war. Houses were built inside the ring fort and they were also circular in shape. Every house had a thatched roof made of straw with a hole in the middle to let out the smoke from the fire. The fire was used for cooking, light and warmth. There were no windows and the floor was usually hard mud covered with straw or rushes. There was very little furniture and the Celts slept on beds of straw. To make the houses, they would hammer strong stakes firmly into the ground. They wove lighter branches called wattle into the stakes. Wattle were light but strong and they came from trees such as the willow. Finally, the wattles were covered with mud called daub. The mud would allow to dry and harden in the sunlight. This process is called wattle and daub. The Celts spent most of the time farming. They grew crops such as wheat, barley, rye, and some oats and beans. They also drank mead, which was a drink made from water and honey or grain. They kept pigs, sheep, and cattle for meat. The cattle provided them with milk and cheese. Skins from the animals provided them with blankets and clothes. Celts wore clothes that were plain and practical. They wore a long shirt called a lena. Their jewellery was a necklace called a torque. Brooches and bracelets were very popular. Celtic clothes were brightly coloured.
During the time of the Celts, Ireland was divided into 5 provinces: Leinster, Munster, Ulster, Connacht and Meath. Back then, Meath was a province along with Westmeath, but now they are only counties because they are too small.
Ireland was first divided this way by the Firbolg. The Tuatha Dé Danann fought with the Firbolg and eventually was agreed that the Firbolg had settled in Connacht, and the Tuatha Dé Danann were given the rest of Ireland.
During the time of the Celts, Ireland was divided into many small kingdoms called a tuath. Each tuath had a king called a Taoiseach. His second in command was a Taoiseach.
A Taoiseach came under the rule of a more powerful king known as a Ricuj, meaning king of the province. The 5 Ri were ruled by the High King of Ireland, who had a place at Tara in Meath.
All ancient Celtic people were warriors if they needed to be. Women usually stayed at home but could choose to train and fight as warriors if they wished. Men would put lime in their hair to bleach it before a battle. The Celts liked to chop off the head of their enemies and nail them over their doorway. The Celts all spoke the same language as they spread across Europe. Their language changed and became more like the native peoples. The Irish language was formed by this mixture of languages that are quite like Irish and are spoken in Wales, Scotland, Cornwall and Brittany.
The Celts use a type of writing called OM. There are 20 letters in the OM alphabet, and most of the examples that we have of the OM come from large stones known as galons. Galons look like the headstones that we see in graveyards today, and they usually mark the burial place of an important king or Taoiseach.
The Celts made beautiful artwork like jewellery, metalwork, sculptures and pottery. They even made tools, weapons and chariots. They decorated those objects with flowing curving lines based on subjects from nature. The art was very popular before the Celts were replaced by new people. The art was amazing.
The Celts love stories and legends. Celtic stories are mostly about war and warriors, with heroes such as King Cullen, Fionn, Queen Maeve and Oisin. The Celts also enjoyed music and games. The harp was the most popular instrument. The Celts passed long winter nights listening to harp music around a fire.
The Celts did not have churches, but they had holy places in the open air, such as sacred woods or wells. They worshipped many gods.
Their chief god was Dahada, the father of the people. Other gods were Lua, Cuchullin's father, Bridget, Dahada's daughter, and Morgan, goddess of death.
The Celts believed in life after death and a place called Tir na Nog, the land where you never grow old. When they died, Celts were buried with all of their possessions to help them in the afterlife.
The main festivals are Samhain, Bealtaine and Éineach. The night before Samhain is Halloween, known as Iha Hauna. Samhain marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winter and the darker half of the year.
The Celtic festival of Bealtaine, which marks the beginning of summer in the ancient Celtic calendar, is across a quarter day halfway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, while the Bealtaine festival is now associated with May the 1st. The actual astronomical date is a number of days later.